All right, I am here at AMC Mobile, Alabama, soon to not be here at AMC Alabama. I just came out of Coyotes, the 2025 film starring Jason Long and the lady who is his wife. I can't remember what her name is right off, but anyways, this is going to be the movie that I think I can definitely make quick work of on the ride home as far as my review, and that'll be all the effort that I put into this movie review. So yeah, let's get going. Let's go home. I gotta drive about 50 miles, so let's get to it. Okay, leaving AMC now. Alright, now look at that. A big thing of popcorn in the road. Wow, really? I watched today Good Boy. I watched The Smashing Machine. And then at 10:20, when maybe I should have just went ahead and gone home because it's after midnight now, I watched Coyotes. Now, the reason I wanted to catch this flick, even after seeing it, the horror film starring Jason Long, if you watch my channel, you know that I recently discovered Barbarian. Now that is a movie that has grown on me a lot in the short time since I've seen it. I think there's something brilliant about it, and his character, Justin Long's character, AJ, in that movie, it was just extremely entertaining to me because of how off, how crazy it was, how odd he was, and you'd have to watch the movie to understand why I think it's genius. I thought, you know what, I feel like supporting Justin Long in another movie. Maybe it won't be as good as that movie was, and it sure wasn't, but maybe it'll be something, you know. Maybe he'll bring something as entertaining as he did in Barbarian. Well, here we go. You know what, I don't want to film my mug for this whole time. Let me film the road. And we're back, and since I'm swirling all over the place, I'm probably going to get pulled over by a policeman. Okay, let's go home. In fact, let me put this phone on charge. Yes, this is a highly unprofessional deal because this is impromptu. I really can't foresee myself sitting down at my computer to put any more effort into this movie. It just wasn't that good. And it's a survival horror movie about coyotes, and even knowing the premise going in, as it was opening up and they have this music that's just a little bit too hardcore, like really making the coyotes seem so menacing and everything, I felt bad about the movie, what it was, and me watching it because of how suddenly distasteful it felt to be using the backdrop of the fires that burnt up so much of LA. I just felt uncomfortable all of a sudden. I'm like, okay, they're using that as a backdrop to make a story for this movie. Okay, fine, but you could have used wildfires just in general. But there was a subtitle, now that I'm recalling it, or not a subtitle, a blurb, a theme, whatever I can't remember what you call it when there's a little sentence that goes as like a promotional for a movie. And I remember seeing an image or a poster online for this movie, and the line said, "Eat the rich." And that's what I had on my mind for much of this movie, because in this movie you see a bunch of, I almost said well-to-do. No, they're not well-to-do. They're scummy, sleazy, bad people. Like, I'm not going to say California people, California liberal. No, not just that. This is the elite. These are the Beverly Hills snobs. The movie opens with a woman who is just so full of herself. She's pretty, she's skinny. What she's wearing, like she just came from the club, and talking all Valley Girl to her friend on the phone, walking her dog in high heels, like she just came from the club. That's how she's talking, and you just know the movie's setting her up in this horror movie to just be obliterated in some horrific way. And that's sure enough what happens. After her little dog is killed by the coyotes, she gets slammed big time by a truck that just, and it's awful. What happens to her is awful, like broken legs. She's like gargling blood as she's like flattened on the road with like maybe the back of her head bleeding. That was really one of the most awful things in the movie, this opening scene, and her still saying effing such and such and such, and you're thinking, who is this menacing person who just ran this woman down and kept going? You don't know. But as the movie goes along, all you can do is just assume that whoever was driving that SUV or whatever, Range Rover probably, is just some person who is kind of gone as little bit crazy as the Coyotes, almost said wolves. And they try, with the CGI, these Coyotes come off really as effective as they are on screen. They're CGI, they're computer generated, and they look more like wolves than the smaller animal that is a coyote. But hey, that's what you got out there in the Southwest mainly. Coyotes, not wolves per se. So that's what you get in this movie. And yeah, I'm all over the place with this. Just gonna scatter it all out because that's the kind of thing this movie deserves. For all of the little moments centering around Justin Long's character Scott as a failing father, like he's not paying enough attention to his family, and so he's grown distant from his wife and daughter. And his daughter at first comes off as such a pill. I can't stand to see, even in movies, teenagers as just off-putting and just so, how do you describe it? Just teenagers. Just not even in a goth stage, teenagers who are just so deadpan, stone-faced, sarcastic. But her whole character, well, I want to say it has an arc, but really she's just kind of filled with regret halfway through the movie onward when she starts to think, you know what, this horrible thing we're experiencing that's tormenting our family and killing our neighbors with the coyotes is because she fed the coyotes. And there was one, and then another one came back. They looked hungry, and so she fed them. She felt sorry for them, so you get that liberal sentimentality going, and you're just thinking that at least somebody like me, as I'm watching the movie, I'm thinking, yep, this is actually a pretty good commentary about how people, especially in that neck of the woods, South California, maybe the capital of the whole mentally diseased outlook on the world and how things should work. It is clever. I give it that. But I mean, as far as how entertained I was, because I've seen so much better creature feature films. This is one of those movies that it's almost like a guilty pleasure, even though I'm never going to watch it again, because after I see something in the movie theater, I really don't have to watch it again. It's burning my brain. And this is one that I'm like, you know what, I wish if I'd skipped this movie, I'd be home by now. But Justin Long, I will say this, Justin Long's character, above all, his character development, how he emoted in his acting, he realized that he is that he has been slipping up. He's been paying too much attention to his work, too much attention in the office, and the way they word these things, it's like he's gone. No, he's there. He's just too preoccupied to be paying attention to anything his wife and daughter are really doing. So they might as well be in different parts of the world. That's how distant they feel. And so it's all about a lot of feelings. And there was one moment in the movie where there's a similar thing with Justin Long's character as there was with The Smashing Machine, a very different movie that I saw right before in the same theater today, where The Rock's character is like, don't you understand? This is my work. This is what I do. This is how I finance our lives and provide us a place to stay. And it worked better in that movie than it did in this one. But Justin Long's character finally does come around. And when I say he emotes, I mean there is a good scene that at the end where he starts crying as he's building this cage that he's gonna hopefully keep his family safe in. It's his daughter's idea, so he's trying to, and she's been bitten. And that, by the way, I know I'm all over the place, but who gives a care? That scene where the coyotes got to her, and the way the music was, and the way the shadow was around like her neck as they were helping her, she was on the floor, and her parents are panicking, especially Scott, because the sight of blood caused him to pass out, which he did pass out. I thought she had like a jugular rip, like the coyote had taken the side of her neck out. And because that's just the way it looked in my mind and the way I thought it looked on screen. Maybe they did it and then they quickly changed it to trick you. I don't know what. But I thought, oh my goodness, she's about to die. She's about to bleed to death. And I'm like, the music supported what I was thinking. It's like, oh no, what kind of movie am I watching? Is it really that kind of a horror movie? Because this is for sure a horror comedy. Every time there is, and she doesn't die, by the way, obviously, spoilers. It wasn't that bad of a wound inflicted by the coyotes. They're trying to help her get nursed up, and they're like, we absolutely have to get out of here. We got to get her to a clinic. We got to get her to emergency to help our daughter. But the roads, even though they're open, there's very little power left in the city because of the fires and the wind, the storm that was before. His wife said, don't you think you should maybe have that tree cut down because of the storm? Oh no, it's fine. It'll be fine. The next day, after the storm, it fell over and fell on their car. So there you go. And she even says, idiot. She's looking at the wreckage of the she's looking at the wreckage of the the aftermath of the storm and how their car is totaled with a tree on it. And that she basically badmouthed their husband like idiot. I tell you, like, you should have gotten this great big tree that's right next to the house addressed before this very windy storm. And of course the next day the aftermath is there's trees all down everywhere, and it's just adding to the problems of what's going on in LA and the surrounding area really during that time, which they don't actually say what time it was or when these fires were, but they're still using that backdrop. And considering how tragic the LA fires were, really all the wildfires that are going on anywhere and in California, but how horrible within the past couple of years those were. It's like it's just interesting. But as far as whatever moral to the movie that there is, and there is one, even though it's constantly couched before and after with humor that sometimes lands and sometimes doesn't, just like a Marvel movie can't really say anything serious without instantly saying something that they think is got to throw some humor in there. At least this is the kind of movie where it's a horror comedy. Maybe you can expect that and they get away with more. But his character actually does come around, and he actually says he's sorry to his family. We need to go on a trip together, and he's going to make things up, and he's going to do things better. And one thing that actually became annoying, that stupid comic book effect. All that you know about it was it was annoying. It was kind of off-putting, because when the first time a character is introduced in this movie, you get that comic book effect, and you get the name of the person next to the character, all drawn like a comic book, and maybe they're saying sigh or oof or got some kind of animated expression on, right? And you're like, why is that? And it's just because he's a comic book artist, apparently, like an animator or something. And they didn't really go into that heavy. Oh, I'm tired. I've been watching movies all day. Got to get it in somehow. But until, especially at the end, is the most he talks about comic book, when he realizes the gas main was exposed and the fire from the neighbor's house had fed over to his house, and now the gas leak really ignited the place. And as they finally survive the movie at the end, they survive the coyotes. He sees his house explode in the end, and it's kind of in a way, I appreciated it as it was happening, and as they're commenting on it. As I think the last thing that they say in the movie is his wife looking over at him and saying, "Honey, just drive the van. Drive as fast as we can and as far away from Hollywood as we can." I you know what? I got to give him that. I got to appreciate that. It's a pretty good line, because it's like, this is finito, finished. That life is gone. Our home is literally no more. And so we're going to be moving on and upward to some other place in the state, in the country, wherever they move to, and it's going to be in a better state of mind and having grown closer to one another because of their harrowing adventure with the Coyotes. And something that I thought was kind of lame was, for one thing, the exterminator guy, and that's what I'm going to call him, his whole character, I know this is a horror comedy, that's what it is, and so it kind of goes with it, but I was like, is this guy going to survive or not? And in the end, you have to believe that he does. Even though they made like he got ripped apart by the Coyotes, he actually was still alive. And that's literally the last scene in the movie. This movie, by the way, has just done nothing. I think I might be one of the only people in the world who watched it. There was a black lady who came in, sat in the very corner, up high. We were like on the top row. She was all the way over in the corner, and I thought, hey, at least one other person's going to watch this junk. Because it's like, what kind of movie is this? I had read like yesterday or something that it's going to have a limited theatrical release, and then immediately you'll be able to buy it or rent it online, streaming, whatever. I'm thinking to myself, is that really the way you want to do a movie? It's like, so many movies are made, and there's so much saturation, and you're saturated with entertainment, and you can't possibly see all these movies. But one thing about it, so many of these trailers were going on. I know I'm talking about other stuff other than the movie right now, but that's it is what it is. I got to talk about my day at the movies. So many of these things are, I just don't. I'm not going to be watching them. I'm going to be skipping them. These last three were literally the last ones I was going to see for the year that I was even interested in. However, now I'm thinking maybe I'll give a couple a try. Maybe I can't think of the lady's name. It's about the young African-American girl who was doing oil fields because she inherited some land in Oklahoma. Zachary Levi's in it. Something or other's oil. I can't remember the girl's name. Anyway, that movie and maybe Soul on Fire. That I would like to support that film, but I saw this mainly because of Justin Long, and I got my Justin Long fixed, and I realized as I was watching this movie that he really is bringing that same kind of, it's not the exact same character, the way they say, you know what, Tom Cruise is like the same guy in every movie, even though he's not really. I know what people are saying. I know what they're getting at, and it's hard to argue against it, but he has played a few characters. Come on, people. And but Justin Long was bringing that same kind of people don't really act this way energy to this movie, but he did a good job of portraying that not effeminate, that isn't the right word, the dainty, skittish, kind of timid, extremely cautious, liberal California mindset. I kid you not, in the opening scene of the movie where the exterminator guy is checking out his place and saying, yeah, if you got rats, it's like, oh, I knew it. And the guy says, yeah, and you probably have like 6 generations after one summer or something like that, all from one big mama rat. They breed so fast. And the guy, and he talks about how they got to kill him, and Justin Long is like, well, maybe we could like trap him. It's like he's Superman from that new Superman movie. Maybe we could trap him and release him into something or other in the desert or something. And the exterminator guy's looking at him like, really, guy? Really? Man, he's all crazy and quirky, the exterminator guy. I think he's trying to put off some, maybe every exterminator's got to be like that in every movie, but I was thinking of Christopher Walken from Mouse Hunt. He's got to be this eccentric pest control guy with all kind of gadgets and poisons. And he's got to be kind of crazy. Anyway, the guy is saying, no, there's only one way to deal with vermin. They've got to be wiped out. And all of Justin Long's little facial expressions, he does a lot of acting through his facial expressions in this movie. He ends up saying, you know what, maybe rats aren't so bad. He's there to have the guy deal with the rats, as in remove them from his home. And the guy said, oh yeah, that's how rats get in. The contractors, they use these cheap materials that the rats can get into and they're attracted to, and that's how they get you. Justin Long literally says, well, maybe rats aren't so bad. Like he's gonna just live in liberal harmony with his rats. That's how. And I thought this is pretty good. I like what they just did with that. It's you're really getting a feel for what sort of fella he is and how he doesn't want to kill anything, literally anything. But when the rubber hits the road, he actually does some stuff in this movie, like stabbing a coyote to death with a red hot poker while his wife held it down with a sheet, that kind of thing. And by the end of the movie, he gets over his fear of blood because he's having to deal with so much of it, and he's had to risk his life and be more assertive and all this kind of stuff. So it is basically Justin Long's movie as far as I'm concerned. There are these other characters, and I actually felt bad for his crazy neighbor who ordered up the prostitute. He had the worst death of all, really. They did him dirty in this movie. The woman abandons him, and I thought, woman, you ran out on him to escape those coyotes. And then later, when she's got this heartfelt, teary-eyed thing where she's locked in the bathroom, she was shooting holes through it and almost shot Justin Long. And then he's like, you want to put the gun down? Put the gun down. I'm your neighbor. You don't want to shoot the neighbor, do you? It was hilarious for just a second. If only we hadn't seen a man who is somehow still alive, though you can see his rib cage and the whole body's been picked clean by coyotes just 10 seconds before. So yeah, that scene didn't really work. She's in there saying, I did everything I could. I tried to help him, and then I can hear them eating him, and then just as long, like, oh, he's gonna throw up just thinking about it, even though he just saw the horrible guy with his mangled, half-eaten up body. That guy, again, they really did a good job of portraying how crazy some of these people are. And you're thinking, what do they do for money? Are they producers or something? Hollywood producers who are on the lam or something? Or how do these people live in these elite neighborhoods? And this guy's in his muumuu or his Japanese robe or his whatever bathrobe the whole movie, and he wasn't having a seance. He was missing his cat. He was so attached to his cat, which is understandable. He was going to kill himself because of the guilt of losing his little furry friend. That's how this movie does you. They kind of jerk you around, like, okay, we're in an emotional state, an emotional shock looking at this man, and he's got a gun to his head when she bursts in, the prostitute woman, the lady of the night as she's called later in the film. And then she has kind of a funny moment with their daughter, because they're both going to have scars on their necks, and they made a joke about how they've been bitten like vampires, so they'll have cool scars from this nightmare. And she jokingly says, "You got a couple of ladies of the night back here. We have to get somewhere fast, guy. You want to put your foot down on the gas and get us to a hospital." That's when his house blew up at the end. But yeah, I thought that woman was going to get eaten and killed for sure, because it's like you can't play the coward in these movies and not get your comeuppance. It's like, you let that guy die, you let him get eaten up by the coyotes. You know you did. Not that you really owed him anything, but my goodness, to make like, I did everything I could. And she was just, she'll probably get a Golden Globe or something for just how quirky and nuts a character she successfully played in this movie. Anyways, yeah. It's, they got the same, I'm going to call it bad music, because to me it was just a little too over the top, this heavy metal sounding music at the end that got to get some airflow in here that they had playing at the end. It was just a bit much. And there were so many times in this movie where it's like, I thought this was like an hour and a half long. How long is this movie? Because it was like after midnight when it was all wrapped up, and I'm like, man, I feel fatigued by this movie. How many times are we going to do stupid stuff? And I tell you what, when the wolves got into their house for the final time at the end, when they all said, hide, I've never seen people look more terrified in a movie ever. I'm thinking the kids in Jurassic Park, when the raptors made it into the kitchen area, the tense scene of them crawling over the kitchen utensils and alerting the raptor, they weren't as scared looking as this family was. And it wasn't just Justin Long with his, what am I going to do? I'm frozen up with fear here. It's his whole family and everybody. And that was just, it hurt my brain how much this movie wanted you to suspend your imagination just to make this movie where coyotes have killed some people. And let's see, what is the death count? How many people died in this? Oh yeah, the woman at the beginning, and then one of his neighbors who was walking back home to his wife, who's like, I guess, I don't know, a model or something. He dies, she dies. His neighbor horribly dies. I actually felt bad for the neighbor, even though he was a very troubled and a man of many addictions, unhealthy addictions. He was still a rather funny, humorous part of the movie, and I'm sorry he died. So who else? I'm not gonna count the exterminator, pest control guy, because he obviously lived in the end. I'm glad. The more I think about it, I'm glad he lived, because he's a character in a horror comedy, or maybe just a horror movie, who was too crazy to die. He's like relentless, like a cockroach or something. You can't kill him. He's that kind of character in this. Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and the cat died. So yeah, I guess that's the full body count for coyotes. But yeah, there's just so much stuff in this movie that I felt like, you know what, I've seen movies that have done this better, the different things that it's doing. I could think of a movie that did this better, and then as the movie goes along, like I said, I can think of another movie that's done this better and that better. But yeah, it's basically Justin Long's movie, and to see his character Scott changed by the end of the movie, at least, that's something for this story called Coyotes. But yeah, I guess I've said all I can say. I really don't know what more I can say. I don't want to. It was just a harrowing adventure with set in the backdrop of LA, almost said riots, fires with coyotes that have been driven in, and that's how the movie opens, with the newscast saying the wildfires are pushing them further into LA and the surrounding county and the Tri-County area. And you can see how vicious they're looking. It's like, so that's what we're told in the beginning. But by the end of the movie, there's another little subplot, a new plot device, where it's like the exterminator guy accidentally trapped a couple of pups in the house, and so that's how Justin Long ends up making a deal. We had a deal. I love the way he says that at the end. We'll make a trade. Leave my family alone, and you can have your pups back. It shows again his almost said, what was he thinking on his feet? He's like, oh, this is what they want. Nah, man. This is still not normal behavior. You can use this as a plot device to move the movie, so you can find some way, so you can have some way of resolving this situation, so that you can bring this whole thing to an end somehow. But this has still just been a crazy mess of watching a bunch of dysfunctional people in their dysfunctional lives deal with a bunch of unhinged man-eating coyotes. But one thing the movie at least does is give you a little commentary on just how off and how unmoored from reality a bunch of people who live in a certain place that I don't want to pick on too much are. And so the movie does have that going for it. But yeah, I guess that's all I got for this one. I can't say anything more about Coyotes. So thanks for listening to me, folks. And yeah, until next time. See you in the next video. Take care.